Alright guys, so I made a few changes that I'm gonna walk you through it right now. I did it ahead of time so I can just go over it quickly because this video is not gonna be focused on this part. But so I'm just gonna go as quickly as possible over it for just so you can have it. And I added two more variables and I already explained how to do this, so I don't have to. But you can just basically pause and copy what I did so you have the exact same thing that I have. But I did a couple of more variables only because I know I'm going to be using white and black because those are normal colors for background and text. Basically those are not like real styling colors, and I added functions for them as well, obviously. And then I changed a little bit here where I made the background white, as you can see here, and I kept the secondary color on the nav bar, but I added this thing here. So this is one thing that you can do with SAS. With SAS, you can nest things like this, and then this basically gets interpreted as navbar. Where's the navbar? Navbar, and then something inside it will be that as navbar that. What that thing means, this little asterisk means, is a wildcard. It means navbar and every element, no matter what it is, whether it's going to be a paragraph, a link, a span tag, a list item, whatever it is, I want that to be. I don't know if that was in the way, so look at it. Yeah, you can still see it here. Yeah, so I want that to be white. So that's how I get all this stuff in here, white, and that's it. That's all I changed there. Excuse me. and then I went here to where I have my actual navbar laid out, and in there I removed the navbar light that was there and I changed it for navbar dark. So this right here is a class that exists in Bootstrap already. Okay, if you use navbar light, Bootstrap is going to make everything inside the navbar dark because all the foreground colors are going to be dark because your background is light. And likewise, if I declare that my navbar is going to be dark in background, then Bootstrap automatically is going to change everything to be light on the front end. Now that sounds almost like what I did here with this right here, right? So it's like, if you already did it here, then why are you doing it again? Well, the reason is because this basically calls for like items that can actually take the property of color. But in this case right here, such as this icon and things like that, some of these are made with vector elements, SVG, and they don't take color, they take fill instead of color. And there will be other CSS rules that will get in the way. So instead of building out an entire list of CSS that will fix that, I just come over here and change it dark, and then Bootstrap will do the work for me. Okay. There was another class here called BG Light, which is what turns this into white, I think, the background of it. I don't need that anymore because I'm overriding it by making it blue. So really, take that out and you'll be fine. So this is basically where I am right now, and you should be exactly where I am right here. All right, so it is time to get into React. So the first thing that we need to do here is, let me close this search here, is we don't want this navbar here to stay in here in the main component for your app.js. You want to compartmentalize everything that you have inside your application in components that you can reuse later. Granted, a header is not a component that you're going to be reusing a lot later, but it's still always better to have things compartmentalized in a component that you can target independently without having to mess around with the code on the rest of the application. So let's start with that. Let's make a header and let's make it a component, and then see if maybe we can use some of the props and that exist here, and then change it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the source, and I'm going to create a folder in my source. So make sure that you click on it so you're highlighted up there. Create a folder, and in this directory I'm going to call it components, and component, click that, and then inside the component I'm going to make a file, and I'm going to call this one header.js. Make sure that it's capital H, because in React it's just normal to file to name all the components with a capital letter in front of it. So it's not camel casing, it's just uppercased, capitalized, not uppercased. Alright, so I'm there. The first thing I like to do, you notice how this says JavaScript, it's a JavaScript file as opposed to this one is a React file. I like to turn it into React, that's before anything, because I want to be able to use my React syntax and a lot of the help out there. Now here's a little trick. If you have this ES7 React Redux reactive snippets or whatever, if you have this installed in your extensions, this is why I went over it in the first tutorial about how important it is to have these involved in there. So pause the video, go through these and add them, because that will help you. That will make things a lot easier. So I'll go slow. There, 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 there. Okay? Pause through all those there, and select them. But if you have this, you'll be able to do things like this. I'm over here and I'm gonna put React RAFC. So that's a React. It creates a React functional component of this right here. So it lays all of this out for you. If I want this one, it will create like, what's the difference? I don't know the difference, to be honest. Let's see what it is. Anyway, you could have picked any one of those and it would have done this. It basically imports React for you if you need it. Sometimes you don't. But if you're going to be adding some React native stuff, then you're going to have React added to it. So it's not a bad idea to import it anyway, just to have it available. And then you're going to have your first functional component that is already built out and laid out, and you can start putting all your code in here. So it's already built out for you. And then it's exported here. Sorry if you hear my daughter out there laughing around. Anyway, and then you have to export it here. The reason why you have to export it is because if you don't, then you can't import it anywhere else. That makes pretty good sense right there, right? If you have to import something, it has to be exported out of somewhere else. Alright, so this is going to be name header, and I'm going to just say hi header over here, just for now. I'm going to name it hi header. I'm going to go to my app.js where I want to actually import this, right, where I want to use it. And you can do this two ways. You can actually write it up manually, or you can just put header, and it will normally shows like whether it's a weird. Sometimes, oh wait, no, that's not it. Like sometimes it does this. Sometimes it shows you if there's a component that it already know that it probably hasn't gone through the compiler yet. But sometimes it does. It shows you that it already exists, and it asks you if you want to import it, and it makes it life easier. But let's just go ahead and do it manually. So import header, y header, because that's why I freaking named it. Import header. Let me make a space there. From, and then you gotta put the quotes, because it's a come from somewhere. It's a link. It's a path. And then at least we gotta go back out a little bit to the components. There you go. And then put another thing, and then there is the header. So import header from header, and then we're gonna write in here, and then we're just gonna import here just to see. And then it's a self-closing for now. Self-closing. So if actually I'm gonna put it under it, because so it can show under here. Okay. And if I do that, there you go. Hi header. So you see it's already working. Everything that I add here now will be automatically injected. Let me close this, and I'm gonna keep this one on this side here. Yeah, everything that I add here will be automatically added inside here. So now all that I have to do is copy this or cut it and save that, and you see it goes away. And then I go to my header here now, and I add it. Actually, I don't even need to have this div. I can just replace that entire thing and make sure that I put things where they need to go, because I like things organized this way. There you go. And I hit enter and it's back. So now this app.js is of no consequence to us. Like I could just do, you know, basically anything to the header and it would not break anything in the app.js. Okay, it will break it in the header but not in the app.js. So the app.js is basically out of the way for right now until we actually decide to add something else like a footer or some kind of other component that is going to go here in the middle of it. So something like that. But now the header will be available to us at the app level. Okay, cool. So we're on a good path here. So the next thing that I want to do is now I want to destruct this a little bit, because I feel like this is a little bit too convoluted, and I have things here that I can probably break down a little further. Okay, so what do we have here? First we have an app bar, some hyperlink button or something like that. Okay, so that's, oh, I'm sorry, that was the logo, my bad. So this is the logo. So this is one thing that maybe we want to create a reusable component for, right? We want to add a prop to it so that we can maintain it a little bit easier without having to find it in other places. So we'll go ahead and do something similar, or something like that. So the first thing that I want to do is basically let's just close this here. Well, that wasn't much of a close. Let's just take these spaces out so that it can actually close. And all right, it didn't. That's weird. All right, never mind. So we'll just delete that there, and then we'll close this here just so you can get it out of the way, just so we can see the bottom of the screen right here, right? So one of the things that we want to use for props is we're going to basically name this prop whatever it is that you want to name it. So what do I want to name this? Is basically going to be well, it could be a title, or it could be, I'm making sure that I have the right stuff here. Okay, so it could be a title, or it could be a logo, or it could be, you know, an image. It could be anything you want it to be, right? But for right now, we're just gonna leave it as a logo, as a text. But like I said, it could be anything you want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add a prop that I'm going to, so there are ways that you can do this. You can basically just put props and then name this a prop of anything you want to name. So it could be title, for example, but then title doesn't exist. So as long as you put props that title, now all of a sudden this right here gets attached to the props, and there's something that now you can pass up to the parent component that is going to be consuming this. Okay, so if I if I save this and I go to my app again, I'm sorry I closed it, and I go to my app.js, yep, right here, and I come over here to my header. Now I can use that prop because I made it available. And I'll explain what that is a little better. So let me just go ahead and add it, and then I'll go through that a little bit. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add here and make this title new navbar, new title. Yeah, there you go, new title. We'll just call it new title. That is not even title. There you go, new title. And there you go, it's there, new title. So let me explain this a little bit further, because this is important. This right here is considered a child of this one. This is the parent and this is the child. How do you know which one is the parent, which one is the child? Because one is included inside the other. So this is higher than this, right? This is inside this. Therefore, this is the child and this is the parent. So you can send props from a child, from this child, to the parent by basically declaring your props, and then start adding props anywhere and naming them whatever you want to name them. This right here doesn't have to be called title. It could be called that, right? If you want to call it that is totally fine. But whatever you call it there, in here, that's what that needs to be, and then it will work just the same. So you see, that's just nothing but just a variable, if you will. It's a placeholder. It's just a name, but obviously you want to make it something meaningful. That way you'll know what to add here. So what is the purpose of something like this? The purpose of something like this is that if, let's say, I needed a bunch of let's say 3 nav bars, which is now very common, or not common at all, I can then use a prop to create more of them. So the first one was new title, the second one was other title, and then the next one is going to be another title. So once I do this, look at this, I have 3 separate navbars, and each one of them has a different title to it, because I am able to create a reusable component with a prop of title, a prop title that I basically over here adjust without actually having to copy this 3 times. This big chunk of, remember, this is bigger, this is longer, see? I made it smaller, this is longer. Imagine copying all of this and just copying all of that and then having to paste it here 3 times. It will make a lot of code that you don't need. So these 3 lines as opposed to what, 60 lines? So let's take that out for right now because we only need 1. All right, so how can we make this a little better? Is we can basically not use these props right here to not make things confusing, and I can destruct exactly which props I want to use. So now, for example, I want to use title as one prop. Now I don't need to use it here, and it will still work the same way. You see that it's not breaking nothing at all. It's not breaking. So I'm still using that as a prop. If I wanted to use my href here as a prop, I can do that as well. Let's say, for example, link. I can add a link, and then I can make it here so that my href goes to a link. So now I added that as a prop. That means that's now able. I am now able to control this from my parent's level. So I can go back to my parent now, and I can say here that I want my link to be google.com. Okay. Now let's see what that did. Is if I recall here, if I refresh here and I highlight over it, if you notice down there, look down here on the screen, that it says that it's going to go to localhost 3000 www.google.com. The reason why it's doing that localhost 3000 in front of it is because it's not routed correctly. Okay, it's actually appending it behind my domain, which is localhost 3000. That's not the right way to do things, but that's not what we're doing right now. What I want you to see is basically the ability for me to create props and control my elements, my child elements, from the parent, and create as many as I want from it. Okay, so but I do want to make use of this, so I am going to keep that. Actually, I do want to make use of that property, so I will leave that there. So okay, so this is looking good. So now one thing that I want to make sure here that I do is my default props. So I'm going to close a lot of the stuff so that I can go down here. And now here's something that I want to make sure. So whenever you create props, you have to understand that sometimes not everyone is going to add something in your props. What does that mean? That means I created 2 props here, link and title, right? Let's say, for example, this is like a list of items with like a bunch of people addresses and last names and middle names, right? Middle names or middle initial. Well, what happens if somebody doesn't have a middle initial? Then there's no need to add it, right? You're not gonna add something in there. So on the UI, that's gonna look a little weird, because then it's gonna look like something is missing in the middle. So you can create default props for whenever you have something, a prop that you added, that you want to add a default message in case nobody adds anything to it. So I'll demonstrate this in the best way I can. So the best way to do it is creating, first of all, the default props, okay? And you're gonna start by using the component name to begin with. So it's gonna be header, and it's gonna be default props. Yeah, default props. And then you're gonna start naming out the props that you want. So in my case here, it's gonna be title, and then my props here, my default props. Let's think about that. So what is it that this is going to do? This is going to do a title of the website or application, right? Which in this case is going to be a tracker of some kind. I think it was called. What did I name it? A task tracker. Okay, so normally someone here in the app.js is going to add task tracker to the application. Normally it's going to look like this, right? It's the developer. But what happens if they don't? What happens if they forgot? What happens if they didn't? If they didn't, you want to make sure that you cover your butt by adding it here. Okay, just in case they didn't. So now, if you can see, nothing broke. But if I go to my app.js and I happen to ignore that prop or leave it blank, oh, actually, leaving it blank means you're declaring it to be blank. So that means that you actually don't want a prop to be task tracker. But if I don't include it, if I don't include my title prop, it's still gonna add it because I am telling my component here to use this prop by default. Okay. Let's say, for example, another example where this could happen is let's say, for example, you want to actually erase it, right? So if you wanted to actually erase it, you can actually bring it back with title and then leave it blank, and it will erase it. Not erase it, but it will declare it as an empty string, which is what it is. So there are ways that you can use these things for, like, for example, you could use it for not. Okay, so here a good example here will be to be determined. Not just that. To be determined or not available yet. So if I do this, it's gonna say to be determined, right? Did I save it? There you go. It's gonna say to be determined, right? So now my developer is gonna look at this and be like, to be determined. Oh man, I forgot to add the title. So I'm gonna go to the title and I'm gonna add the title what I actually want the title to be. And now because I wanted that, it's gonna overwrite it. So whatever I do here to my prop will override the default. Okay, the default is only in case someone forgets or doesn't need to add anything to that particular prop. So if it's empty, it will use my default, but if it's not empty, it will use whatever is been declared in that prop declaration. Make sense? Okay, so we have that. Now another thing that we have to consider is the prop types, and this is something that you can do with TypeScript. If you know TypeScript and you're going to be using TypeScript, you can safeguard the types of properties that you're going to use. But we can do it in React as well. So it starts with header, and then you're going to use something called prop types, and then you're going to name the prop that you want to safeguard, and then you're gonna put prop types, and then what kind of type of property this is going to be. This one is going to be a string, right? So you're gonna name it or declare it to be a string. Now here's the thing, this is not working, and the reason why it's not working is because prop types is not defined, which means it needs to be added to the import, because prop types is not something that comes naturally inside of React. You have to actually add it to, I mean, it is in React, but you have to import it into your file. It's not added by default. So you're gonna add prop types whenever you want to use prop types. You have to add prop types from prop types. Prop types. There you go. Now if you look at it, it's now being used. Now the part that is going to be confusing for you for a while is to know when to use a capital or when to not use a capital. Here is always going to be a small one, camel cased, and here is always going to be a capital or whatever that's called. Okay, so what does this do now is that it allows this to but it would only accept this to be a string. Okay, so if I, for example, came over here and said, I think that still needs to be, I think that's still gonna add it as a string. Oh, that's a good one. I forgot how to do that. How would you add that as a boolean? Oh, that's how you add it as a boolean. So right here, so if I add it as a boolean, okay, it's gonna then basically add right here a little message that says warning, invalid or failed prop type, invalid prop type of type boolean supplied to the header and expected string. So it's basically saving you from making errors down the line. So this is a good thing to have and a good habit to get into, to make sure that you have the proper prop types declare whenever you declare props to have prop types and to have default props at all times or whenever possible, like as much as you can, whatever. And so that way when you do that, then you're safe that whatever you're going to use here is going to be great. Okay, so there's a little bit more to destruct out of this. That was just this part. I would normally prefer to have this as a button component separated from it, and then I will have the actual menu separated on it as well. So how about a little homework? Do the exact same thing I did. Okay, and let's see if you can do it. Do the exact same thing I did, but add this button in a separate component. And if there are any props and you want to take a stab at it, go ahead and add props to it and make sure that it's being injected in this header. Here's a hint. Okay, if you do this, it makes things a little bit easier to read. But so if you do this, you'll be able to tell what can be and what doesn't have to be a prop, right? Make sure that I have that there. Okay, so the class name doesn't really have to be a prop. Could the type be a prop? I mean, how many types could there be for a button? Could be a type submit, could be a type button. I don't know, depends on you. Data, all of this, the collapse and all this stuff, do they have to be props? What about the name? What about any of this stuff? What about the icon that you're gonna put inside here? So all of this stuff, do they have to be props or not? If they don't, I'm not saying because you have another component that you have to have props. Maybe you don't need props on this one. Or maybe you do. Now, me personally, if it doesn't need props, do I really need to make a component? I don't think so. But you can do it if you want to, just for homework purposes. So you can put that, and then maybe add this as a prop in it. Find out in the React circles out there, whether it's Stack Overflow, anything like that, how to add something inside of how to template a component so that you can add a piece of HTML inside it and being able to inject it in here. Okay, that will be one way to do it. If that is a little bit too advanced, then don't worry about it. Okay, here's my take. I'm gonna leave it just the same way it is right here. I'm not gonna make a component for it because I don't think there is a need for it. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. Keep it the way it is if you want to keep it the exact same way that I have it. But for if you want to do it for homework purposes, have at it. It's always good to break your stuff and make sure that you go back to it so it can still run. But you learn by breaking things up and you figure things out that way. All right, but me personally, I'm gonna leave it this way. So whatever you do, you can comment it later and go back to this, so you can always have what I have and it works. But this I will have, I will break it down into more components because I'm gonna show you later how to make sure that I can do this through a map component. Okay, all right. And I think I have said a lot so far. So I am gonna cut it here, and I'll see you guys on the next one.